The email arrived at precisely 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, its innocuous subject line masking the devastation contained within. Sarah Chen stared at her screen, her perfectly manicured fingers hovering over the keyboard as she read and reread the message that would change everything. Dear Ms. Chen, after careful consideration, we regret to inform you that Meridian Technologies will be terminating our contract effective immediately. Meridian was her biggest client, representing nearly 40% of Chen Consulting's annual revenue. Their 3-year contract had been ironclad, or so she thought. Rebecca, Sarah called out, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Could you come in here, please? Her chief operating officer appeared in the doorway, already looking concerned. After 15 years of working together, Rebecca Walsh could read Sarah's tone like a book. What's wrong? Sarah turned her laptop around. Meridian's pulling out. Effective immediately. Rebecca's face paled as she scanned the email. They can't do that. The contract. Apparently, they can. Sarah pulled up another document on her screen. They're citing Clause 17.3, Material Breach of Confidentiality. That's impossible. We've never breached. I know. Sarah's voice was ice. This has Elena written all over it. Elena Petrov. Her former mentor, the woman who'd given Sarah her first real break in the consulting world 20 years ago. The woman who'd become like a mother to her, right up until the moment Sarah had decided to start her own firm. You think she planted something? Rebecca asked, settling into one of the sleek leather chairs facing Sarah's desk. I think Elena's finally making her move. Sarah stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked downtown San Francisco. The view had cost her dearly, both the corner office suite and the journey to obtain it. She's been waiting for this moment ever since I left. The story of Sarah Chen and Elena Petrov was legendary in Silicon Valley consulting circles. Elena had discovered Sarah fresh out of Stanford's MBA program, a brilliant but naive 24-year-old with more ambition than connections. Under Elena's guidance, Sarah had risen through the ranks of Petrov Consulting at unprecedented speed, becoming the youngest partner in the firm's history at 32. For 8 years, they had been unstoppable. Elena, with her old-world European elegance and iron will, had opened doors that would have remained forever closed to a young Asian-American woman in the male-dominated tech consulting world. Sarah, in turn, had modernized Petrov Consulting's approach, bringing in younger clients and innovative methodologies that had doubled the firm's revenue. They had been more than mentor and protege. They had been family. Elena, whose own daughter had died in a car accident years before, had treated Sarah like the child she'd lost. Sarah, whose parents had returned to China when she was in college, had found in Elena the mother figure she desperately needed. Until the day Sarah had announced she was leaving to start her own firm. She'll never forgive you, Rebecca had warned back then. Elena doesn't handle betrayal well. Sarah had known this, of course. She'd witnessed firsthand how Elena dealt with those who crossed her, but she believed their relationship was different, special. She'd been wrong. The first year had been brutal. Long-standing clients had mysteriously developed concerns about working with such a new firm. Promising deals had fallen through at the last minute. Top talent had turned down job offers after receiving counter-offers they couldn't refuse. But Sarah had persevered. She'd worked harder, fought smarter, built new relationships, and gradually, Chen Consulting had grown. Now, 10 years later, they were one of the top boutique consulting firms in Silicon Valley, with a reputation for excellence that even Elena's whisper campaign couldn't tarnish. Or so she thought. What do you want to do? Rebecca asked, interrupting Sarah's thoughts. Sarah turned from the window, her reflection overlaying the city skyline like a ghost. Get legal on the phone. I want to know exactly how solid Meridian's position is. Then get me everything we have on their account, every email, every meeting note, every deliverable. Something doesn't add up here. Rebecca nodded, already pulling out her phone. And Elena? A small, dangerous smile played at the corners of Sarah's mouth. Elena's played her hand. Now it's time to play mine. The next morning, Sarah sat in her home office, surrounded by papers and digital records stretching back months. She'd been up all night, fueled by green tea and determination, piecing together the puzzle. The story that emerged was both elegant and devastating in its simplicity. 3 months ago, Elena had hired Marcus Wong, a former Meridian executive who'd been let go in a recent restructuring. A week later, Chen Consulting's secure project server had logged an unusual access pattern. Someone using valid credentials had downloaded thousands of files in the middle of the night. 2 weeks after that, Meridian had begun expressing vague concerns about their project's direction. Small things at first: missed deadlines, communication issues, scope creep. Nothing serious enough to raise red flags, but enough to create a paper trail. "Oh, Elena," Sarah murmured, running her finger down a timeline she'd constructed. "You've gotten sloppy in your old age." The security logs told the rest of the story. The credential used to access the server belonged to James Martinez, a junior consultant who left the firm 4 months ago. According to HR records, his system access should have been revoked immediately upon his departure. Someone had changed the termination date in the HR system, keeping his credentials active. Someone with high-level administrative access. Someone like Elena's newest executive assistant, who'd worked in Chen Consulting's HR department until 6 months ago. Sarah's phone buzzed. "Rebecca. Tell me you found something," her COO said without preamble. "Better than that. I found everything." Sarah quickly outlined what she'd discovered. Elena didn't just plant evidence of a breach, she actually caused one. She used inside knowledge of our systems and former employees to create a legitimate data leak. Jesus. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "That's elegant," Sarah supplied. "Thorough? Very Elena. I was going to say criminal, but yes, all of those too." Sarah leaned back in her chair, staring at the framed photo on her desk. It showed her and Elena at a charity gala 5 years ago, both of them smiling at the camera, Elena's arm around Sarah's shoulders in a proprietorial gesture that now seemed less maternal and more possessive. "She's not going to stop," Sarah said quietly. "Meridian is just the beginning. Once word gets out that they terminated our contract for cause, other clients will start asking questions. Elena will make sure of it." "We need to fight back," Rebecca insisted. "We have evidence of criminal behavior. We cold. Go to the police, file a lawsuit, start a public battle that would destroy both our firms." Sarah shook her head. "Elena's counting on me being too smart for that." "Then what?" Sarah smiled, and for a moment she looked so much like Elena that it would have frightened anyone who knew them both. "We're going to give her exactly what she wants." The plan came together over the next week, each piece falling into place with a precision that would have made Elena proud. Sarah worked late into the night, coordinating with her team, making calls, pulling strings she'd spent years cultivating. The first phase began with a press release announcing that Chen Consulting was restructuring in the wake of recent client changes. The stock price of their publicly traded parent company dipped slightly. Elena, Sarah knew, would be watching closely. Phase 2 started with carefully planted rumors in the industry. Chen Consulting was struggling. Key employees were updating their LinkedIn profiles. Clients were getting nervous. Elena's response came swiftly, a series of emails to Sarah's remaining clients expressing concern about the situation and offering Petrov Consulting's services at preferential rates during this difficult transition. Sarah read each poached client email with grim satisfaction. The woman who taught her everything about business was walking straight into her trap. The killing blow came 3 weeks after the Meridian contract termination. Sarah sat in her office, watching the financial news ticker on her wall-mounted screen, waiting for the announcement she knew was coming. Right on schedule, the headline scrolled past. Betrayal. Chen Consulting in talks for acquisition by major competitor. Her phone rang almost immediately. Elena's name flashed on the screen. Sarah let it ring twice before answering. "Elena, what a surprise." "Is it true?" Elena demanded, her accent thicker than usual, a sure sign she was agitated. "Are you selling the firm?" "Now, Elena, you know I can't comment on market rumors." "Don't play games with me, girl." The familiar term of endearment had become a weapon. "After everything I taught you, you're just going to give up. Let some corporate vulture pick apart everything you've built." Sarah smiled into the phone. "I learned from the best, Elena. Sometimes you have to know when to cut your losses." There was a long pause. When Elena spoke again, her voice was softer, almost maternal. "It doesn't have to be this way, Sarah. Come back to Petrov Consulting. We could merge the firms, rebuild together, like it should have been all along." For a moment, Sarah felt a pang of genuine emotion. The offer was everything she'd hoped for when she first left: recognition, reconciliation, a chance to repair the relationship she'd valued so much. But that Sarah Chen was gone, replaced by someone harder, someone Alana had helped create. "That's a generous offer," Sarah said carefully. "Why don't we discuss it over dinner? Tonight at Maison d'Or." Alana's favorite restaurant, the place where 15 years ago she'd offered Sarah her first partnership stake in Petrov Consulting. 8 o'clock, Alana agreed, a note of triumph in her voice. Sarah ended the call and immediately dialed another number. "It's done," she took the bait. "Execute Phase 3. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Sarah's team worked with practice efficiency, putting the final pieces in place. By 7:30, everything was ready. Sarah arrived at Maison d'Or exactly 10 minutes early, knowing Alana would already be there. Sure enough, her former mentors sat at their usual table, a glass of Burgundy already half empty in front of her. Alana stood as Sarah approached, embracing her with European formality, air kisses that never quite touched skin. "You look tired, my dear," she said, concern and criticism mingling in her voice. "It's been a challenging few weeks," Sarah replied, taking her seat. "But then, you'd know all about that, wouldn't you?" Alana's smile didn't waver. "Business is business, Sarah. You knew there would be consequences when you left." "Did I?" Sarah signaled the sommelier. "The same," she said, indicating Alana's wine. "Tell me, was it worth it? Destroying everything I built just to prove you could. You destroyed it yourself when you betrayed me." Alana's voice was sharp now, the maternal facade cracking. "I gave you everything, my knowledge, my connections, my trust. You were like a daughter to me." "No," Sarah corrected quietly. "I was like a possession to you, a prize to be displayed and controlled. And when you couldn't control me anymore, you decided to destroy me instead." "You're being dramatic." Alana waved a hand dismissively. "I simply helped some clients make informed decisions about their business relationships." Sarah's wine arrived. She took a careful sip, savoring the moment. "By orchestrating a data breach using former employees, by falsifying HR records, by engaging in corporate espionage." Alana's hand tightened on her wine glass, but her voice remained steady. "Accusations without proof are meaningless, my dear. You taught me that." "No, Alana, you taught me that." Sarah reached into her bag and withdrew a thick folder. "Just like you taught me to always have proof." She laid out documents one by one: security logs, email records, bank transfers, sworn statements from former employees. Alana's face remained impassive, but Sarah saw the slight tremor in her hands, the tightening around her eyes. "What do you want?" Alana asked finally. "The same thing you offered earlier, a merger." Sarah sat back, watching her former mentor process this. "But on my terms." Alana's laugh was sharp. "You can't be serious. These documents prove nothing. And even if they did, a lengthy legal battle would destroy both our firms." "You're right," Sarah agreed. "That's why I'm not going to use them. Instead, I'm going to show you something else." She pulled out her phone, pulling up a financial news website. The headline made Alana's face go pale. "Betrayal King. Chen Consulting acquires controlling interest in Petrov Holdings." "That's impossible," Alana whispered. "The holding company has been quietly accumulating debt for years," Sarah finished. "Just like you taught me, I did my research. Your expansion into Europe, the new headquarters building, the aggressive hiring, it all looked impressive on the surface. But underneath," she shook her head, "you've been leveraged to the hilt for years. It only took a few carefully placed offers to your creditors to gain control." Alana's hands were shaking now. "The board would never." "The board voted an hour ago, unanimously." Sarah's smile was gentle, almost kind. "You taught me well, Alana. Always have a backup plan. Always know your opponent's weaknesses, and never, ever leave loose ends." For a long moment, Alana said nothing. Sarah could almost see the calculations running behind her eyes, looking for a way out, an angle she'd missed. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "What happens now?" Sarah signaled for the check. "Now we do exactly what you suggested. We merge the firms. You remain as chairman emeritus, a ceremonial role, of course. You get to retire with dignity, your legacy intact. In return, you sign an ironclad non-compete and confidentiality agreement. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning, these documents go to the SEC. the FBI, and every major news outlet in the country. Sarah's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Your choice, Elena. Just like you always taught me, always give your opponent a choice, even if both options serve your purposes. Elena was quiet for a long moment, staring into her wine glass as if it held the answers she sought. Finally, she looked up, and Sarah saw something in her eyes she'd never seen before. Respect tinged with fear. You've outplayed me, Elena said simply. No, Sarah corrected her. I've become you. Isn't that what you always wanted? The merger announcement made headlines across the business world. Tech consulting giants unite, the Wall Street Journal proclaimed. Student becomes master, Forbes declared, running a cover story featuring Sarah and Elena shaking hands in front of their combined company logos. Elena played her part perfectly, giving quotable sound bites about passing the torch to the next generation and the natural evolution of the industry. If anyone noticed that her role in the new organization was largely ceremonial, they were too polite to mention it. 6 months later, Sarah sat in what had once been Elena's office, reviewing the quarterly numbers. The merged firm was performing better than even her most optimistic projections had predicted. Elena's old world connections combined with Sarah's modern approach had created something truly formidable. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Rebecca entered, carrying a small package. This just arrived for you, from Elena. Sarah opened the package carefully. Inside was a framed photo, the same one that had sat on her desk for years, showing them at the charity gala. But this wasn't her copy. This was Elena's version, the one that had sat on her desk for all those years. A note was attached. You were wrong about one thing. I didn't want you to become me. I wanted you to become better than me. Congratulations, my dear. You have. Ye. Sarah stared at the photo for a long moment, then placed it carefully on her desk, next to her own copy. Two versions of the same moment, two perspectives on a relationship that had shaped both their lives. Her phone buzzed with a meeting reminder. The board was waiting. Sarah stood, straightening her jacket, and headed for the door. She paused for a moment, looking back at the twin photos on her desk. Elena had taught her everything about success in business, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But Sarah had learned one lesson on her own. The price of ambition isn't paid in dollars and cents, but in the relationships we build and break along the way. 1 year later, Sarah stood at the podium during the company's annual leadership conference, surveying the crowd of consultants, managers, and executives who now looked to her for guidance. The merged firm, now known as Chen Petrov International, had become the gold standard in tech consulting, with offices in 12 countries and a client list that read like a who's who of Silicon Valley. Success, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom, is not just about what we achieve. It's about how we achieve it. In the front row, Elena sat watching, her silver hair elegant as ever, her posture still commanding respect. But there was something different in the way she looked at Sarah now. Pride without possession, admiration without control. When I started this journey 20 years ago, Sarah continued, I thought I knew exactly what success looked like. I thought it was about titles, revenue, market share. I thought it was about winning at all costs. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the room. I was wrong. Success is about legacy. It's about building something that outlasts us. It's about teaching others not just how to win, but how to win with integrity. After the speech, Sarah found Elena waiting in the green room, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. They had settled into a new rhythm over the past year, not quite friends, but no longer enemies. Something more complex, more nuanced. Beautiful speech, Elena said, handing Sarah a glass. Though perhaps a bit idealistic. Sarah smiled, accepting the champagne. I learned from you that idealism and pragmatism aren't mutually exclusive. Ah, but you've surpassed the teacher there. Elena's eyes twinkled. I never quite managed to balance the two. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping their champagne. Through the window, the San Francisco skyline glittered in the evening light. I've been thinking, Elena said finally, about retiring. Properly this time. Sarah turned to look at her, surprised. Despite her ceremonial role, Elena had remained actively involved in the firm's European operations. Are you sure? Elena nodded. It's time. The firm is in good hands. Better hands than mine, if I'm being honest. And there's a villa in Tuscany I've been neglecting for far too long. The board will want to do something to mark the occasion, Sarah said, already thinking ahead. A proper send-off. No, no. Elena waved her hand dismissively. I've had enough ceremonies. But I would like one thing. Name it. Dinner. Just the two of us. At Maison d'Or. Sarah felt a flutter of memory, that night a year ago when everything had changed. Where it all began and ended. And began again, Elena corrected. In a better way. 2 weeks later, they sat at their usual table at Maison d'Or. The same burgundy, the same elegant surroundings, but something fundamentally different in the air between them. I never told you, Elena said, studying her wine glass, about my daughter. About what really happened. Sarah stayed quiet, sensing the importance of the moment. In 20 years, Elena had never spoken about her daughter's death beyond the basic facts. A car accident, decades ago. She was brilliant, headstrong. Like you in many ways. Elena's voice was soft with memory. She had just told me she was leaving the firm. She wanted to start her own company. We fought. The things I said. She shook her head. She was upset when she drove away. The police said she was driving too fast on the coastal road. Understanding dawned on Sarah. That's why you reacted so strongly when I left. Elena nodded. History repeating itself. Or so I thought. I couldn't bear to lose another daughter, so I tried to destroy you instead. Ironic? No. Elena. Sarah reached across the table, taking the older woman's hand. I never knew. How could you? I never let anyone close enough to know. Elena squeezed her hand. But you proved me wrong. You showed me that letting go doesn't mean losing everything. Sometimes it means gaining something better. As they finished their dinner, Sarah realized that this moment of genuine connection, of understanding, was worth more than all the corporate victories and strategic triumphs combined. The next morning, Sarah arrived early at her office. She looked at the twin photos on her desk. 2 moments captured in time, 2 perspectives on a single relationship. Carefully, she took Elena's version and placed it in a beautiful silver frame she'd had made specially. That evening, she drove to Elena's house, where moving boxes were already stacked in the foyer. Elena was leaving for Italy the next week, starting her new chapter. One last gift, Sarah said, handing her the framed photo. To remind you that sometimes the best success stories aren't about winning or losing. They're about learning to see things differently. Elena studied the photo, running her fingers along the silver frame. You know, she said finally, I spent so many years teaching you about business, but you taught me something far more valuable. What's that? That true legacy isn't about control or power. It's about having the courage to let go and watch what grows in the space you leave behind. They embraced, no air kisses this time, but a real hug between 2 women who had traveled a long road from mentor and protege to enemies to something that finally felt like family. As Sarah drove home that night, she thought about the lessons learned, the bridges burned and rebuilt, the price of ambition and the value of redemption. She thought about the young woman she'd been, so eager to prove herself, and the leader she'd become. Success, she had learned, wasn't a destination but a journey. And sometimes the most important victories weren't won in boardrooms or through brilliant strategies, but in quiet moments of understanding and forgiveness. The next morning, she placed an order for a new sign for the company headquarters. Chen Petrov International, it would read, and beneath that, their new motto. Building success, preserving legacy. It felt right, a tribute to the past and a promise for the future. A reminder that in business as in life, the greatest achievements often come not from defeating our rivals, but from learning to see them as they truly are, fellow travelers on the same complex, challenging, and ultimately rewarding journey toward understanding.